having major Wi-Fi problems in my apartment. I live right on C Street, which is like 7 minutes from Longworth building, office building, which is my office. And the problem with a lot of these older, townhouses is that, they were built in the 1800s. And so trying to get, really good, solid signals for Wi-Fi is kind of difficult. But anyway, I'm so glad to be with you today. And Vote, Run, Lead, I cannot tell you how important that you are, important that the work that you're doing, and really encouraging women to stand up and to run and to lead. It is imperative for a time such as this. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today. The work that you're doing, the work that you're doing to support other women, like I said, it's imperative that we do so. And we're ensuring that women are standing up and speaking their truths. That's what we need now more than ever. And speaking the truths in just all parts of this country. So it's so vitally needed, important for our sense of democracy, which if you recognize right now, if we're not careful, our democracy will be dismantled before our very eyes. When I was sworn into office, and that was actually January 2019, I couldn't help but, take note of how diverse the freshman class was. I mean, I was so excited to see the most diverse class of freshman members of Congress ever in the history of Georgia. I mean, not the history of Georgia, but the history of the nation. We have the most numbers of women that have ever been elected to our nation's Congress at one time. We have the most number of women of color that have ever been elected. So I'm really excited to be a part of this life-changing, transformative Congress. We come from all walks of life. I mean, from every corner of the United States, with a variety of backgrounds, and we are what America looks like. And I know many of you on this call, there are very many of you that I have actually worked with or spent time with, or at least I know you as an acquaintance. But, for those of you who do not know me, my name, of course, is Lucy McBath, and I'm the Congresswoman for Georgia's 6th Congressional District. And what makes it so important, I think, to so many people with my election is that, one, I ran on the same ticket as Stacey Abrams, but I'm the first Democrat to hold this seat since 1979. But most important is I'm the first minority in the history of Georgia to hold this seat, a seat which is in an R+8 district and historically a Republican district. So today I'm speaking to you in an especially uncertain time. Everyone is anxious across the country, and rightfully so, we should be. I know that many of you on this call have felt like I have felt recently. I feel like we are fighting for the soul of our country. We're fighting for the soul of our own people and our own community. These last few weeks have exposed the deepest wounds in our nation. And I've watched headline after headline as I have watched young Black males and females being gunned down. And I have watched unlawful policing. And, every time I see that, it just puts a dagger in my heart. And I'm gravely reminded of my own loss with my son, Jordan. I, too, lost my son, Jordan, because of the bigotry and hate that people are experiencing, that people of color have been experiencing in this country for over 400 years. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and I'm going to say their names, Ahmaud Arbery, each of them are a painful reminder to me of the hole that's left in my soul every single day that my son, that I know that my son Jordan was murdered for the same kind of bigotry and hate. I know the pain of so many grieving mothers, Black mothers in this country, who have lost our children for reasons that are completely far outside of our own control. And after all the political and the social and economic gains that we fought for during the civil rights movement, and I'm a baby of the civil rights movement, I was in the stroller at the March on Washington. And my father was Illinois branch president of the NAACP, served on the executive board for over 20 years. So I grew up in the marches and the rallies. I had at night the civil rights leaders and workers coming to our household to strategize and create the picket signs. And I joke all the time, but I really mean what I say, is that the first song I really ever learned to sing was We Shall Overcome, because we were singing it all the time. So I know that all those gains that we fought for the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, disturbingly, we have really slipped back in time. For those of us that have lived long enough, we have slipped back in time. And the magical moment of my mother and my father's era has just given way to a daily erosion of civil and human rights for communities in Black America today. And we are plagued by the very same injustice, inequality, and discrimination that my father and my mother fought so hard to eradicate when I was a child. And yet, as we witness, thousands protesting in our city streets, we're no longer marching to, the triumphant chorus of "We shall overcome," but, that cadence and that angry rhythm of a race of people that is crying out, because when there is no justice for us, there is no peace. And America's moral conscience and accountability for a race of people, we are completely woven into the very fabric of this nation. And it's, for the hatred and the bigotry that we're seeing, experiencing again, coming to the foray again, we see it rearing its ugly head all over again. And it continues to fan the flames of systemic racism that our communities for generations have suffered by. We're now faced with a dangerous resurgence of voices here in Washington. And yes, I mean dangerous voices here in Washington and across the country that continue to sow the seeds of division and hate. The fact that even we are not going to be able to get this legislation, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the fact that we're not going to be able to get this past the Senate lets you know what we are dealing with in terms of the division and the divisiveness of this administration. And many of you, know my story about losing my son, Jordan, by the inability of a man, who had a gun to see my son as a human being. All he saw was the color of Jordan's skin. Michael Dunn's implicit bias and bigotry, empowered by his gun, was enough to stir his dark heart. And, Jordan's dark skin was the reason enough for him to fire a gun and believe that he had the right to do so. So Jordan's story, I understand, is just not unique. We see this happening every single day in our communities. And for the first time now in the country, we have white America that's acknowledging what has been happening. We've been telling them for generation after generation as to what's happening in our country. Now they see it for themselves simply because of a video camera. Every one of us here today, we've got to work to hold in high regard, respect, and dignity for human life, for our human lives. We must work together to build this America that holds in high regard, respect, and dignity for every mother, father, child, sister, brother, auntie, uncle. Every one of us deserve to be able to live in this country. We are a beautiful mosaic of people from all over the nation. We are immigrants from all over the nation. All of us, whether we were brought here or whether we came here willingly, we are all not native to this land. The only ones that are native to America are the Native Americans. So, we continue to sadly see discrimination rear its ugly head over and over again. We're all called to love the stranger. We're all called by the Bible that we serve to love one another because we are all strangers to this land. And, that's on all of us. We're all accountable and responsibility for trying to change the ills of society that hurt any American, any one of us in this country. And we've all got to stand together now more than ever. And I am so excited. I must tell you, I'm so excited to see people, and especially our young people, marching in the streets and rallies, but it has to go beyond that. The hard work happens now, after the marches and after the rallies are over, when we have to go back into our communities and begin strategizing and mobilizing and collaborating with people who have not worked with us before. That is how the change happens. That is how it's stimulated. The work begins now. If we do not go beyond the marches and the rallies, then every Black man, woman, and child in this country that has died before this time we will be doing them a grave disservice. For all the civil rights workers and leaders and people that lost their lives before now, we will be doing a grave disservice to their own legacy because they fought for us. They stood for us. They lost their lives for us. We have an accountability and a responsibility to stand up now more than ever. It's on all of us. And no one individual person is going to be able to make the change alone. It's collective together, all of us collectively together. If we are going to move, we have to move collaboratively, one people, one nation under God, to make any cultural shift and change that is going to matter for generations to come. Every one of us is a stakeholder in protecting our right to live in this country to its fullness. And that the liberty that is promised to us by the Constitution, we have to fight for that every single day of our lives. We must be intentional in recommitting ourselves every single day to building the bridges with people that don't look, think, or act like us, and to tearing down the strongholds that prevent us from living in our fullness. I know what it's like to commit your life to fighting for something that is fair, more just, and a more safe community. Trust me, I have been doing that now for the last 7-8 years of my life. And I find myself here in the fight for a more fair and more safe country because I wanted nothing more than that for my own child. I wanted nothing more than that for my son. I wanted him to grow up in a world which did not, look at the color of his skin, but valued him because of who he was as an individual, valued him as a child of God. And before I had Jordan, I was dreaming all the time about what kind of future he would live. And I truly believed that he would live in a future that was better than what I grew up in. I truly believed that he was going to live in a world that would value him. But I have to sadly say that when Jordan was murdered, I had a wake-up call. I unequivocally had a wake-up call that the world that I thought was better for him than when I was a child, it was no different. That the same civil rights movement that we fought for in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's the same civil rights movement that we are fighting for right now. And sadly to say, as far as we've come, there's still so much more we have to do and so much more we have to undo. And that's what we do here in Washington every single day. My colleagues and I, the Congressional Black Caucus, we're on the front lines fighting for our people, fighting for our communities, fighting for the people that we represent every single day. I cannot tell you, if we did not hold the House, it's like holding the wolves at bay. If we did not hold the House, I don't know where America would be. I have no idea where we would be during trying to mitigate COVID-19. The packages that we have been able to pass would not have happened without the House. Would not have happened without the House. So we continue to fight as hard as we can. I will tell you, I have gone overnight from being a suburban mom to a mother that is absolutely on a mission. And I know that all of my colleagues here in Washington are on a mission. And I just began demanding more from our leaders. Why were they silent about gun violence? Why were our federal leaders and our state legislators, why were they silent about gun violence? And why was the clergy silent? Almost 100 Americans continue to die in this country every single day. Hundreds more are hurt and maimed that we don't even know their names. No one but the people that love them and their families and the community members know who they are. I happen to just be in a case that became a national case. And so I fight every single day to make sure there are no more Jordans, and there are no more Trayvons, and there are no more Eric Garners, and there are no more Ahmaud Arbery's and George Floyd's. I'm fighting especially for communities of color, which remain so disproportionately impacted by all of the ills of society. So I decided to stand up for families like mine. I decided to stand up because who better than to stand up than us? No one is going to give us anything. We have to work for everything that we need. We ourselves are the only ones that are going to be able to really put forth the effort and demand what our communities and our families need. Now, others will come along to assist us, but ultimately, we have to be in charge of our own destinies, and it's always been that way. I've heard from, I know that you will hear from so many outstanding women today. I continue to just be amazed by the women here on the Hill, Congressional Black the Congressional Black members that I work with all the time. I'm just amazed that every single day I get to work with them. I get to learn from them, because I am probably one of the most unorthodox candidates that's ever run for Congress. But just to be able to be with the people that have been here far longer than me and have really made such a tremendous impact in the lives of so many people, I consider it a true blessing every single day. But I get to work with women that I know that believe in equality, that believe in a better America. I get to work with them every single day. November is going to be a very pivotal point for America. I think we all see now, and especially for any of you that live in Georgia, as I do, you saw what happened with all of the voter suppression that we had in Georgia, and I could see that coming. I saw it coming, because I had so many people that were even calling my district office saying, Congresswoman, where is my vote by mail ballot? Where is my vote by mail ballot? I haven't received it yet. And I knew that this was nothing but the same voter suppression that we'd seen time and time again, what we saw in 2016, what we saw in 2018, and it will continue unless we decide that is no longer going to happen on our watch. Everyone will have to take part in this election. Everyone has a stake in this election. No one can afford to stand on the sidelines and expect somebody else to do it. Whether that is knocking on doors, making phone calls, writing postcards, or even running for office yourself. We all have a duty to stand up and to protect our elections in November and going forward. And I will continue to fight every single day against the same leadership and system that failed my son and has failed so many like him. We have to stand together against injustice at this time. There is no other choice. And I will say in closing, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, he said, we were all brought here in different, in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. We're all in the same boat now. And time is of the essence. There is no time to stand on the sidelines. Unite, mobilize, organize, get activated, and let's get it done. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Congresswoman. And the Congresswoman is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, my sorority. So we are Saras, and we have the great honor to have 7 members of my sorority that are serving as U.S. Congresswomen, and we call them the Sensational 7. And so I'm pretty sure all of those Black women that she was speaking of, the Sensational 7 is a part of that group. And we are so proud of all of the work that each of you do for this country. The biggest takeaway that one of the things you said towards the end was my big takeaway from this. When you talked about that we are pretty much the only ones that's going to do this, and we have to depend on ourselves. No one will come to our rescue, Congresswoman, and that we need to do what we need to do to protect ourselves and create the world and the community that we want and need in America. So again, thank you for this opportunity to have this dialogue and conversation with you. We are so proud and we love you, and you will continue to represent the 6th district because we know victory is coming in November. So love you and thank you for everything.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you so much. We need you here in Washington. We need you in our state legislators. Stand up, vote, run, and lead.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.